Okay, welcome back, beautiful people. It is your girl.
Are you listening? Damn.
For me, this is like a pressing one, right? Ryan and I don't know if you've seen the video, we were talking about influencers and advertising. And I wanted to
Yeah.
maybe understand and define for everyone, how would you differentiate a content creator versus an influencer? Because in my mind, influencers is more the high profile, whereas content creators would be more niche groups and doing something very curated, very specific to that group of individuals.
Yeah,
But we're starting to see this overlap
exactly.
happening, right? So how do we then differentiate them?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Content creators, they bring craft, they bring originality, they tend to be able to sort of really leverage social culture or the culture of a particular cohort in how they create and express themselves. They also bring that niche appeal, right? Because there's content creators in every single niche segment of the internet. Book talk, cooking talk, you know, the manosphere. There's so many different little niches where
Okay.
content creators like exist. And influencers, exactly that. They drive influence. They give you reach, they give you trust and credibility. They also give you like a share of like a broad audience set. But they're not always 100% believable because they don't necessarily belong a lot of the time to like a very specific audience cohort or community, right? They are influential across multiple segments. And I think there is definitely a space for both, right? Depending on what you want to do. And also in terms of the span of your engagement, So content creators, it's always best to have a long term relationship with them and to build that credibility over time. And it's also leverage from their amazing content creation engine and make them like an extension of your content and social teams. Whereas influencers will give you those big spikes in reach and share of voice and conversation, but they don't necessarily hold the brand story for a long period of time on your behalf.
It's like having those authentic advocates for your brand when collaborating with a content
Yeah.
creator. And I think,
Yeah, creators definitely have a longer shelf life than influencers in terms of what they do for your brand.
yeah, to that video, that was kind of my point. Is that I see their value in the long term brand building effort, where you have this trusted confidant that advocates for your brand outside of what you're doing as a brand, online, offline, wherever you are. There is somebody speaking for you. And I do think it needs to be a long term thing. And I think maybe there's an opportunity there for brands and
Exactly.
creators to collaborate. No, definitely. No, definitely. And
Mm.
then, do you find that creators or influencers drive more long-term value? So you've already mentioned that the long-term relationship with a creator allows for, that authenticity and trust to build over time. But in terms of the value at the end of the day for clients, who offers a greater long-term value in partnership, do you think?
Um, so I would say influencers are great for driving spikes in share of voice. Um, but when it comes down to sort of lifespan, I think it's creators, but you have to invest in your creators. You can't have just one interaction with a creator, right? You need to build that relationship. And also the beauty of creators is that they they contribute to your social SEO because they create multiple pieces of content a lot of the time. They create very extended brand stories a lot of the time. And they really just give you like a good cultural in to a particular audience set. So I think from an efficacy perspective, it depends. If you want to drive volume very quickly, then use an influencer. If you want to create consistent conversation, share a voice, drive social SEO, and build storytelling over time than use creators. But the thing also with creators is that we're using a lot of the time more than one at a time, right? Because of the size of their world, you're going to need to do a little bit of a volume job, right? In working with them, which also has its own benefits because it's like there's a social SEO benefit as well.
No, definitely. Because, like you said earlier, right, content creators give you access to a very niche demographic. But if all brands want to operate at a large scale, so in order to drive that reach, you do need to work with a lot of creators that hold pockets in different spaces to
Yeah,
get that reach. So that makes sense.
exactly.
I think the crux of it is they do both add value, but it depends again on what the objective
Yeah,
of using them is, and maybe that's where the
exactly.
lines need to be very clear as what is the reason we're using social media. And I think these days we're taking that conversation a lot more seriously because you can't avoid social media.
Yeah,
No, that's interesting.
no,
And then
definitely.
how do you then measure the effectiveness of a influencer or content creator for a brand beyond just the engagements of likes and shares? Like how can brands then look at, okay, this influencer or this content creator has been putting out content on my behalf. Where do we start measuring the value they're adding, and how do we measure that?
Yeah, we measure watch times. I mean, from an awareness perspective, we're measuring watch times, we're measuring sentiment, we measure if there's a surge or an increase in share of voice and brand mentions. We also measure if our community is growing as a result of their influence. But also, depending on the campaign, if it's about driving demand and driving volume, then we have to plug in as part of the mechanic ways of tracking whether we are getting sales from our influencers. So it is those shoppable links. It's also from a media perspective how we utilize that content. You can do spark ads on TikTok and promote content for conversion, influencer content for conversion. We've seen how that outperforms brand content, 9 out of 10 times. And so it's
Um,
about